It's now Pete Seat, a former White House spokesperson under President George W. Bush and Democratic strategist and executive vice president of the Third Way, Matt Bennett. Pete, let me just start with you here. Pretty stark words from Richard Quest there on the consequences of actually firing Jerome Powell. What do you think the consequences are of threatening to what President Trump is doing right now? He's already got a trade war. Does he really need a Fed war?
Well, President Trump has never been a fan of Jerome Powell. And
except that he appointed him. Except that he appointed him. I will say that. But go ahead.
Well, there are people who lose favor with Donald Trump, even though he appoints them. But the Secretary of Treasury just a few days ago started floating the conversation about who might replace Powell when his term expires in about a year or so. I would just say about this whole thing, John, the Fed handles monetary policy. They don't handle trade and foreign policy. This is a much larger conversation than just interest rates and what the Fed manages. And the White House has a lot to juggle and a lot to talk about. Negotiations that are taking place with foreign leaders, including later today with the Prime Minister of Italy. And let's talk about job announcements that are taking place. These policies are bearing fruit right now, despite what the Fed chairman says.
Well, the Fed chair said it will increase prices, that consumers will bear the cost of that, and also said it will slow growth. Matt, from a political perspective, do you think it's smart to pick a fight, this kind of fight with the Fed chair?
No, I think it's insane. Look, Donald Trump took an economy that was doing pretty well. There were problems. Inflation was too high. But the economists said we were the envy of the world 6 months ago, and he has already driven it into a ditch. The markets are plummeting. Prices are about to rise in incredible ways because of these tariffs, and people's 401ks are really hurting. Now, the same guy that has done that to our economy on purpose for no reason wants to take over monetary policy. As we just heard, I think the markets will go bananas if that happens. I would rather pick somebody out of a crowd at a Washington Wizards game to run monetary policy than hand it over to Donald Trump at this moment.
There are no more Washington Wizards games. They've been eliminated long ago, but I see your point right there. I want to play some sound from Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was talking about autism, and he's talked about autism for some time. But there are people who take exceptions, or I think maybe were hurt by the way he talked about autism just yesterday. Listen.
This is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted.
Now, there's no question that autism has a huge impact on people and families around the country. In dispute is whether or not it's preventable. But Matt, I think what some people were hurt by is the idea that people who do have autism can't live productive lives. That hit, I know, some people the wrong way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it was absolutely despicable to hear that from the Secretary of Health and Human Services, from anybody. I mean, look, Elon Musk, the richest guy in the world, currently basically running the American government, has said that he has autism spectrum disorder. There is an enormous spectrum of people. Some are deeply disabled. Some are very abled and contributing to society in all kinds of ways. And nobody in any position of authority should talk like that. Moreover, the thing that he said at the beginning of that quote was also incredibly irresponsible. There's no evidence that it is caused by external factors like that. And the thing that he is doing by turning his agency into an advocate for this fringe idea about autism, questioning vaccines, is unbelievably dangerous. And people in the United States are already dying as a direct result of that.
Pete, what do you think?
I think RFK Jr. needs to find a new soapbox. He's on the right track when it comes to tackling chronic disease and getting this country healthier. But every time he wades into the autism debate, he exposes the fact that he knows absolutely nothing about that topic.
I want to shift gears to something that popped up overnight. Nate Silver with his Silver Bullet Bulletin. He did something sort of fun where he did a mock draft of potential Democratic candidates for president for 2028. And he and Galen Druke, who he did this draft with, they actually agreed that the number one pick right now would be Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And Druke wrote, or said, he said, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has broad appeal across the Democratic Party. There are a lot of people who could potentially get on board with her. But I think equally important is the fact that she has very fervent support. I think a lot of people are going to run in 2028, and it's going to be a contest for attention and getting those sorts of people who might be in your boat to turn around and stay with you through thick and thin. And I think that's Ocasio-Cortez. Pete, the crowds are out there right now with Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders out touring. She is delivering a message on the economy. Do you think she could be someone who rises to the top?
She could be, for the reason that she resonates with the base. She makes people on the Democratic side of the aisle feel like they are being listened to and being heard. She conducted a little experiment on social media right after the election where she asked her followers, who were split ticket voters, Trump AOC voters, why did you do that? We are on opposite sides of the ideological spectrum. We don't agree on policy. And it came down to the fact that they believe Donald Trump and AOC listened. They heard them.
Wow.
And they understood the plight of regular, everyday Americans. And that's powerful.
So, Matt, very quickly, I got to let you weigh in here because you are the Democrat on this panel. But does AOC, how does she sort of align with the third way?
Well, not very well, but I think Pete's right. I think she's an incredibly skilled communicator and politician. If she runs, she will be formidable. But number one draft picks tend not to do very well in presidential campaigns. If you think back on people like Jeb Bush was probably the number one draft pick, and Mario Cuomo before Bill Clinton won in 1992. So I don't know if she's going to run. And if she does run, winning is very hard no matter who you are.
This is a good setup for the NFL draft, less than 2 weeks away. Matt Bennett, Pete Seat, great seeing both of you. Thank you very much.